Please find a comfortable place to sit. Place your hands on your legs. Close your eyes or keep a soft focus on the screen. Take a deep breath in and out. A deep breath in and out. Continue to breathe deeply and slowly. Feel relaxation flowing down from your head into your neck, into your shoulders, down your arms, and into your hands and your fingers. Relax down into your chest, into your stomach, and down your legs, into your feet. Continue to breathe deeply and slowly. Okay. Welcome to the 14th lecture of my happiness class. Today's topic is the fruits of happiness. The fruits of happiness are oranges and bananas. Kidding. The fruits are the advantages which you gain from happiness. You would think having happiness was its reward enough, and what else do you need? But actually there are many benefits of happiness that go beyond even what you're feeling. Happiness is, as far as mental health goes, it defines the upper reaches of mental health. Happy people are what you might call in the higher level of mental health. Their happiness almost as a definition of mental health. Happy people suffer far fewer, if any, bouts of depression. I mean, going into deep depression that can last, for days, weeks. For some people, it's almost permanent. But happy people have few of those bouts, which is not surprising. They have far fewer emotional disorders of another sort either. Disorders such as panic attacks or phobias or eating disorders or the many other type of emotional disorders that people have. Happy people are going to have far fewer than those. And Happier people exhibit far fewer behavioral problems and dysfunction. Happy people are not going to be breaking the law so often and disorderly. Behaviors that are aggressive and threaten other people. That those type of behaviors are far fewer among people seen as happier. And of course, we're talking about research here that they have shown that they're at a higher level of happiness through the surveys. So happier people, according to these surveys, are going to be far less of a problem to society, and actually they're going to be quite a benefit to society in general. Happier people are therefore mentally healthier, but they do have, of course, those times when they're challenged. That when they'll have reasons for sadness, they are going to go through a life just like everybody else and have some setbacks and some disturbing things happen to them. But happier people are more resilient when faced with stress and adversity. They suffer sadness, grief, and anxiety like other people, but they bounce back a lot quicker. In other words, they're not going to be as affected by these things as less happier people, as less happy people. Happy people tend to be a lot less fearful and a lot more optimistic, which of course is going to affect many things in their lives. Happy people are also physically healthier. That their mental state affects their physical state. And this is something, of course, there's been a great deal of research about this, as people's state of mind and their physical health. So there's abundant evidence of this, that happier people are physically healthier people. State of mind has a big impact. Why it has an impact, they're not quite sure. Of course, there's a lot of theories. Someone will say, well, less stress, less hormones that are going to cause physical types of problems. And of course, there is that. But sometimes the evidence is showing almost miraculous types of rebounding from illnesses, etc., because of the mental state of a patient. Happier people also tend to live longer. Now, how could you find that out? I mean, in order to find that out, you would have to find out people who are happy and somehow control for their environment. And that's exactly what they've done. They've done research, for example, on women living in a convent, and found that in an environment that is the same for everybody, so you can't just say it's a matter of the environment, that they found that people that they have identified as being happier, and of course we're talking about going over many years here, identified as happier as living longer. There is also a great deal of evidence here, but a lot of it not scientifically controlled. But they do have scientific evidence of studies of people living in a controlled environment like a convent, and that the happier ones tended to live longer than the less happy ones. So, more happy, longer life. It's become almost a truism. You're not exactly sure why, but in hospitals, that has now become kind of like in Patch Adams, a movie about a doctor who used all kinds of comedy, etc., to make people happier. and in the movie that these people recovered a lot faster. Well, that's becoming widely accepted that patients' attitudes, whether positive or negative, have a big impact on how fast they heal and overcome their illness. A really big impact. So it's just widely accepted. Once again, why? Well, there are theories, but the fact that happier people who are ill get better quicker is very established. There are also this great deal of evidence of mental attitudes changing and are then associated with what they call miracle cures. I mean, truly mind-blowing things like dying of cancer and then the cancer just disappears type of thing. There are many studies of these type of miracle cures. And so we're talking about tens of thousands of cases that have been investigated. No real explanation of why that happens. And there are no medical reasons for it or explanations for it when you understand the body as a biological machine. You know, as many doctors have done, especially in the past. So these miracle cures cannot be explained, but they do seem to have a strong correlation with the state of mind of the people who have them. So there's more to this whole thing of mental health and happiness and what happens in your body than we can explain at this point in time. The social attributes of happier people are very attractive. Happier people are more loving. They're more compassionate. That's right. I mean, there's a great deal of evidence that happier people are more loving and compassionate. They're kinder. They tend to interact with people with a lot more kindness, a lot more reliably. They're more charitable. They're more giving. Giving of their time, giving of their money, giving of their efforts. And they are far more charitable. More loving, compassionate, kinder, more giving. And something that's important, and one of the reasons why many companies have become very interested in what you can do to make their employers happier, is they're more cooperative. They work very well in teams. There's less of, the competitiveness and more of the cooperation. So happier people are more cooperative, which has many benefits also to companies looking at their bottom line. They're more sociable, and that means that they like to interact with people. They like people more. So they're a lot more fun to be around. They tend to engage a lot more with other people in very positive ways, more sociable, and they're better mediators. When there are disputes, happier people are more able to somehow come to an agreement, a solution to those disputes. They're better mediators, and you may be surprised that they're also better liked. And happier people are better liked. It's very attractive, a happier person. People like to be around them. Now, this isn't universal. There are some people who really don't like to be around happy people. It's as if there's kind of a magnetic repellent, if you will, to some people. So it's not universal, but in general, happy people are better liked. So their social attributes are highly positive, highly commendable. Happier people are, and as I said, this is something that's been researched a great deal, happier people are more creative. It's as if you kind of open up and new ideas can come in easier. A lot of creativity is not arrived at through reason and logic. It's coming as if from some source that something new pops in to their minds. So creativity quite often is kind of an openness to this type of influence, if you will. They're more creative. They're more productive. That means that when they are working, they tend to produce more, whatever it is. And it isn't necessarily products. They're more productive in finishing projects. They're more productive in coming up with new and better and more efficient ways of doing things. As far as getting jobs done, you want to have a happy employees, also happy employers. That would help. So they're more productive. They're more successful in their endeavors. Whatever they start and want to do, they are a lot more successful in completing those things. They're more focused, which may explain why they have these other attributes as far as being more creative, more productive, etc. But they tend to be more focused. That I guess, a lot of the things that less happy people are bothering them, and they're somewhat diverted whenever they're doing, that happy people have less of that. And being more focused has a lot of benefits. One of them, and as an educator, this is very important to me, and it's important to educators in general. It's one of the things that is discussed a lot. The ability to learn and retain. Happier people are better able to learn and retain. Retention is a big issue in education. And they have shown that happier students they learn quicker and they retain more. That's one of the arguments that I would use, that happiness should be promoted in schools, but I'll be getting to that. But if you're better able to learn and retain, that is going to benefit almost everything that you do as well. They're also a lot more spontaneous and enthusiastic, which is one of the reasons that they're probably better liked. They're a lot more fun. Something that I find in interesting studies, there are studies of social environments, let's say a work environment, where you have employees working together. And a lot of times these work environments are toxic, emotionally toxic. A lot of negativity going on, a lot of backbiting, a lot of competition, a lot of attacking other people. Toxic type of work environments, social environments. And many of you have probably experienced these to some degree. They studied what happens when a person with a higher level of happiness comes to one of these environments. A happy person is introduced. What happens somewhat slowly is that a lot of the negativity starts going down. Some people are going to be attracted to the happiness. It starts changing their attitude and how they interact. And with a growing group, it becomes a lot more cooperative, a lot kinder, and a lot friendlier. Not all people react to it like that. In fact, some of them really do not like it. For some people, being around happy people is kind of repellent. I remember that I was flying to Amsterdam, and on the airplane, there was a Dutch guy sitting in the chair in front of me, and he was talking. He was saying, "Boy, am I glad to be leaving America. People are just too happy." Oh, not everybody likes to be around happy people, I guess. And there's certainly, you will find some people who really do not like it. What they found is, in studying these work environments where a happy person was introduced, is that it would change the environment. As I said, a number of people would be affected. They liked this happiness, the more positivity, and this kind of spread. What they found also is that the people who didn't like it tended to leave within 2 years. So in 2 years' time, what they found is that the introduction of a happy person could change that social environment for the better. Happiness can be contagious. And luckily, they're not trying to find a cure for that particular contagion. And happy people do tend to make other people feel better and act less conflictual. They're a lot more effective in addressing social problems and mediating conflicts, which is one of the reasons, as I said, that companies are interested in doing something to make their employees happier. After all, it adds to the bottom line. When you think about the fact that happier people can change social environments, the happier people are kinder, that they're better mediators, that there's far more cooperative interaction, and there's more joy in people's life in social environments because of this. I want you to think, ask my students to think, what would it be like if we could promote greater happiness in society, that far more people were happier, a far higher percentage of the population was happier? What would change? Well, a society with more general happiness would be mentally and physically healthier. You'd have more physical health and more mental health. That in itself would make a big difference. It would be less conflictual. A lot of the conflicts that are caused by happiness and ego would be reduced. When I say less conflictual, would that mean less political? That would be nice. There would be less crime. Happy people are far less prone to criminal type of activity, to aggressive type of activity, to harming other people. It would be a society that is more tolerant rather than being so judgmental. It would be more tolerant, and it would have less prejudice. more tolerant, less prejudice. That, of course, would be a major improvement over today's society. We've been moving actually in that direction for a long time, but with happier people, it would become far more prevalent. Less prejudice, less conflict, more tolerance. There would be fewer social problems such as drug abuse and alcohol addiction, child and spouse abuse would go down. There would probably be less poverty and hunger in the world because of the kindness, but also happier people are more creative and productive, more willing to share, they're more charitable. It may be a world where the interest in actually eliminating hunger in society and eliminating dire poverty would become far more popular goal. We could change society greatly in that way. So many of the problems that confront us now wouldn't disappear, but they would go down. There would be a social environment that was kinder, more caring, more cooperative, more civil, probably more honest and more responsible as well, and more generous. In other words, if we could promote happiness in society, we could create a far better environment. It wouldn't necessarily be that environment would make us happier per se, although I will say that the fact that people can interact a lot more and their relationships would be richer with more people, that is associated with greater happiness. But it would be a kinder, more loving society with far fewer problems that we have today. And surely that would be something that we should aspire to. In fact, that is what supposedly we are aspiring to. The key here, though, is that what we're trying to do is make more people happy. And how can we do that? How can we make a population in general happier? What can we do? I know, let's turn to the government. Let's have a Department of Happiness. Well, I don't know if you've noticed this before, but when it comes to happiness, politicians and people in government would be the blind leading the blind. Although, if you turn to the politicians, they do have the recipe for happiness. I suppose that's also the recipe for getting elected and re-elected. Jobs. One of the sayings is the economy stupid. And so they're always talking about jobs because they do believe that people's hearts are connected to their pocketbooks. The evidence doesn't show that that's going to make people happier in general. Add more jobs, higher pay, hasn't worked, hasn't made society in general happier. But if you're going to talk about probably the main focus of politicians or even departments of education, it's usually about jobs. The evidence doesn't support that idea that's going to make us happier. I know, how about better technology? What we need is technology that makes it really easy to communicate and have all kinds of entertainments and knowledge at their fingertips. Yeah, right, we already have that, right? It didn't make us happier. In fact, there is growing depression. No, scratch that off the list. I don't think technology has been making us happier. With all the blessings of technology, greater happiness isn't one of them. Some would say, well, we have to get back to religion, we have to promote religion, and religious beliefs are associated with somewhat greater levels of happiness. But promoting religion has brought a lot of conflict and a lot of problems and a lot of intolerance as well. So if you're going to promote beliefs, they would have to be done in some acceptable way. And probably promoting religion isn't the way to go. What I will say is that there are fewer and fewer young people are taking part in established religions. They still have what I'll call spiritual beliefs, many of them do, believe in God and a higher purpose, but they're not really into established religions. And the reasons that are quite often given is that you find established religions rather judgmental and intolerant. And that's not going to help. I know, let's have a massive advertising campaign to promote mindfulness and meditation. Interest in mindfulness and meditation is spreading. And it probably is changing some things. But promoting these techniques may have somewhat of an impact, but it's rather slow. And as I said, as some of these things are changing as far as techniques and understanding of happiness, we're still not achieving higher happiness levels in general. So that isn't working either. Now, how could we have a major impact on society as a whole? What could we do to really make a lot more people happier than otherwise? Not jobs, not technology, not promoting religion. What could we do? Education is mandatory for all children. And almost all around the world. And kids are going to spend something like 15,000 hours in classrooms. At least in K-12 classrooms. So if you really wanted to have a big social impact, you might want to make empowering students' pursuit of happiness the central purpose of education. Can you actually contribute to students' pursuit of happiness? Yes, you can. And I think in remarkably effective ways. And that is what my next lecture is about. So, be happy and make the world happy. Namaste.